Hello everyone, today we will be learning about openings. I will build the basis of your opening understanding by teaching you fundamental opening principles and also give you an easy line to play that ensures that you get into a good position after the opening. Openings are extremely important because they determine the position you get into. If you don't play the opening well, you will find yourself at a disadvantage and will end up fighting an uphill battle. On the other hand, a good opening understanding will allow you to get into a good position after the opening and even potentially put you at an advantage right off the bat. So, let's get started. There are two basic things you need to know about opening: opening principles and opening theory. Opening principles are a set of general rules that should be followed during the opening. You should rely on opening principles when you are unsure how to play in the opening. By following these simple rules, you can ensure that you aren't making any mistakes. One of the most important opening principles is that you want to develop your pieces. You want to develop them from their starting squares as quickly as possible. And your goal is to develop all your pieces in the opening, which allows them to be of more use than how they are in the starting squares. In chess, we want to control the center. When we talk about controlling the center, we mainly mean the e4, e5, d4, and d5 squares. We want our pieces to be attacking and therefore controlling these squares, because compared to playing on the edges of the board, playing for the center of the board enables us to move more freely and have more options. Therefore, when we develop our pieces, we want them to move to squares that control the center. Some good squares for your pieces include the pawns on e4 or d4, the knights on c3 and f3, and the bishops on c4 and f4. You can see by developing your pieces here, they are actively controlling the center. Another important thing to remember is that we don't want to move the same piece multiple times in the opening. Our goal in the opening is to develop all our pieces. So if we keep moving the same piece over and over again, we will be wasting time that could be more effectively used to activate all our pieces. For example, let's look at this demonstration. When black is moving the same piece over and over again, white is more efficiently using that time to develop his pieces to the optimal squares. In the end, white is much more active and controls many more squares, which allow him to move more freely and have more future options than black. In addition, we also don't want to move our queen too early in the opening. It's best to first develop all our pieces such as the pawns, knights, and bishops before we move our queen. This is because if we move our queen too early in the opening, the opponent can easily harass and chase around our queen, which once again loses time that could be better used developing all our pieces first. Take this example. When white moves his queen, it's easily attacked by black. In the end, white has moved his queen 4 times, while black has used that time to move his pieces to meaningful squares: the knight on f6, the pawn on d6, and the bishop on g4. A final thing you should try to do in the opening is castle, often as early as possible. Castling is important because it protects your king. Castling moves your king from the center of the board, where most of the action occurs, to the edge of the board, where it is much safer. By castling, you are protecting your king and ensuring that it won't come under danger in the future. Now that was a lot to remember. Let's review. There are a couple rules that you want to follow in the openings, and these rules will be able to guide you to achieving a good position out of the opening. In the very beginning, you want to try to develop all your pieces and try to have them actively control the center. By developing, you also open up the option to castle, which makes your king safer, so you should try to castle as soon as possible. Because you want to develop all your pieces, you don't want to waste time by moving the same piece over and over again, and you don't want to move your queen out too early as it can be easily attacked. Let's look at a couple puzzles to review these rules. For each, use our newly learned opening principles to think if the proposed move is a good idea or not. This is the first puzzle. Is moving my bishop to c4 a good idea? Pause the video and I will reveal the solution in 3 seconds. Yes, moving the bishop to c4 is good here. That is because we develop one of our pieces and place it on a square that controls the center, the d5 square. This is also the first time the bishop has moved, so we aren't wasting time by moving it multiple times. This is the second puzzle. Should I move my pawn to h4 here? Pause the video and I will reveal the solution in 3 seconds. Moving my pawn to h4 is not a good idea here. Remember, we want to develop our pieces and control the center. Moving the pawn to h4 accomplishes neither of these. The pawn is on the edge of the board and way off from the center, so it would be a better idea to develop our pieces. For example, our knight to f3, our knight to c3, or our bishop to f4. For this position, should I move my bishop from e2 to d3? Pause the video and I will reveal the solution in 3 seconds. Here, moving the bishop to d3 is not the best idea. While it controls the center better on d3 compared to e2, we are moving the same piece twice. The bishop has already developed from f1 to e2, so it would not be a good idea to move it again, and it would be a better use of time to instead castle or develop our bishop to f4. As for an opening line, I have a very easy one that you can learn. It doesn't matter if you are white or black, they work for both sides. I will be showing the opening from white's side right now, so if you're playing black and want to play this opening, just flip the moves. For example, when white goes e4, if you're black, just go e5. So, because we want to develop our pieces and develop toward the center, we want to move our knight to f3, our bishop to c4, and our knight to c3. You can see how all these moves both develop our pieces and also attack the center. Our knight is controlling the d4 and e5 squares. Our knight on c3 is controlling the d5 and e4 squares. And our bishop on c4 is well placed to control the d5 square. Next, we want to castle because it protects our king. And remember, it's a good idea to castle as soon as possible, so this is a good move. Now that we have castled, we want to develop our final bishop, which still is out of the game. So to do that, we first move our pawn to d3 to enable it to move out. And on the next move, we're able to move the bishop to g5. And this simple opening ensures that you can transition into a middle game with a good position. Congratulations, you have now all learned about the opening. We covered a lot today, so feel free to rewatch certain parts to make sure you fully understand. Thank you all for watching.